For Ukrainian Americans in the Buckeye State and globally, the month of March marks the celebration of the life of Taras Shevchenko. We bring you this virtual program in the 5th week of Russia's brutal, unprovoked war on Ukraine. Every day we witness the war crimes committed against innocent civilians, including women and children. On behalf of the United Ukrainian Organizations representing Americans of Ukrainian descent in the state of Ohio for nearly a century, we welcome your prayers and support. We hope Shevchenko's tenacity in the face of oppression to fearlessly fight for human dignity and Ukrainian national consciousness is an inspiration to all during these days of destruction and suffering. We thank you for tuning in. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.
Who was Taras Shevchenko? Taras was a multifaceted, talented individual. He was an artist, a poet, a writer, playwright, folklorist, and ethnographer. Shevchenko was regarded as the bard of Ukraine. He spoke through his works to rouse the nation. Through his many written works, he further elevated vernacular Ukrainian to a high literary level at a time when the ruling Russian Empire considered the Ukrainian language to be culturally inferior. Taras Shevchenko was born in 1814 in the village of Morinci in central Ukraine, then part of the Russian Empire. He moved to the nearby village of Kirilivka in 1816, which today is called Shevchenkove. Shevchenko was one of 18,000 serfs owned by Lord Engelhart. Unfortunately, tragedy struck Taras when he was young. When Taras Shevchenko was 9 years old, in 1823, his mother died, and his father married a widow with 3 children who treated little Taras with great cruelty. 2 years later, when Taras was 11 years old, he became an orphan after his father died. When Taras was 14 years old, Vasily Engelhart, Taras's owner, died, and Taras became the property of his illegitimate son, Pavel Engelhart. He inherited all his father's property, including Taras and all the other serfs. In 1838, Shevchenko met Ukrainian artist Ivan Soshenko, who introduced him to famous Russian painter and professor Karl Bryulov. Bryulov donated his portrait of Russian poet Vasily Zhukovsky as a lottery prize and used the proceeds to buy Shevchenko's freedom on April 22, 1838. 835 of Shevchenko's works survived into modern times in original form and partly in prints engraved on metal and wood. Works include oil paintings, watercolors, sepia, India ink, pencil, etchings of portraits, mythological, historical, and household themes, architectural landscapes, and scenery. In 1830, when he was 16 years old, Shevchenko produced the drawing Bust of a Woman in Italian pencil. Looking at the detail, one could appreciate masterful execution of pencil, one of his favorite media. This is one of a few Shevchenko early works which survive to current times. Katerina was painted in oils in St. Petersburg in 1842 and is exhibited in the Taras Shevchenko National Museum in Kiev. It's based on his poem, Katerina, about a Ukrainian village girl who fell in love with a Russian soldier. Taras demonstrated amazing mastery of watercolor in addition to his oil painting. Gypsy Fortune Teller was painted in watercolor but had been mistaken for oil painting on several occasions. On September 26, 1841, he was awarded a silver medal at the St. Petersburg Academy of Arts. Taras actually started writing poetry while still a serf. He wrote a novel called Artist about his pre-academic years. In 1840, Shevchenko wrote the first edition of Kobzar, the famous collection of his written works. The Kobzar had multiple editions. Kobzar was published in other countries than Ukraine, as it was not permitted to actually be published in Ukraine until 1889 in Kiev. The final edition of the Kobzar during Shevchenko's lifetime was published in 1860. The Kobzar has been translated into over 100 languages, including Japanese, Arabic, Korean, and Esperanto. The Kobzar was translated in its entirety into English, Russian, and Hungarian.
Розрита могила. Світе тихий, краю милий, моя Україно, за що тебе сплюндровано? За що, мамо, гинеш? Чи ти рано до схід сонця Богу не молилась? Чи ти діточок непевних звичаю не вчила? Молилася, турбувалась, день і ніч не спала, малих діток доглядала, звичаю навчала. Виростали мої квіти, мої добрі діти, панувала і я колись на широкім світі. Панувала, ой, Богдане, нерозумний сину, подивись тепер на матір, на свою вкраїну, що колишучи співала про свою недолю, що співаючи ридала, виглядала волю. Ой, Богдане, Богданочку, якби була знала, у колисці б задушила, під серцем приспала. Начетверо розкопана, розрита могила. Чого вони там шукали? Що там схоронили старі батьки? Ех, як бито, найшли те, що там схоронили. Не плакали б діти, мати не журилась.
Стоїть в селі Суботові, на горі високій, домовина України. Широка, глибока, ото церков Богданова, там-то він молився, щоб москаль добром і лихом з козаком ділився. Мир душі твої, Богдане, не так воно стало. Москалики, що заздріли, то все очухрали, могили вже розривають, та грошей шукають. Льохи твої розкопують, та тебе ж і лають. Що за труди не находять? Так-то, Богдане, занапастив єси в Богу сироту Україну.
Чи ми ще зійдемося знову? Чи вже навіки розійшлися? І слово правди і любови степи і дебрі рознесли. Нехай і так, не наша мати, а довелося поважати. То воля Господа. Годіть, смирітеся, молітесь Богу і згадуйте одне другого. Свою Україну любіть, любіть її. В врем'я люте, в останню, тяжкую минуту, за неї Господа моліть.
Мені однаково, чи буду я жить в Україні, чи ні, чи хто згадає, чи забуде мене в снігу на чужині, однаковісінько мені. В неволі виріс меж чужими, і не оплакане своїми, в неволі, плачучи, умру, і все собою заберу, малого сліду не покину на нашій славній Україні, на нашій, не своїй землі. І не пом'яне батько сином, не скаже синові: молись, молися, сину, за Вкраїну, його замучили колись. Мені однаково, чи буде той син молитися, чи ні. Та не однаково мені, як Україну зліє люди, присплять лукаві і вогні, її окраденою збудять. Ох, не однаково мені.
Taras was arrested in St. Petersburg for his poems, including The Dream, which satirized the oppression of Ukraine by Russia and allegedly insulted Tsarivna Alexandra, wife of Tsar Nicholas. After his conviction, he was exiled to the Russian military garrison in Orenburg near the Ural Mountains.
Згадайте, братія моя, подайте лихо не верталось, подайте лихо не верталось, як ви гарнесенько і я, і за решотки визирали, і певне думали, коли на раду тиху на розмову, коли ми зійдемося знову на сій зубоженій землі. Ніколи, братія, ніколи, з Дніпра у купі не п'ємо, розійдемось, рознесемо в степи, в ліси свою недолю, повіруєм ще трохи в волю, а потім жити почнемо між людьми, як люди. А поки те буде, любітеся, брати мої, Україну любіте, і за нею без талану Господа моліте, і його забудьте други, і не проклинайте, і мене в новолі лютій інколи згадайте.
In 1857, after 10 miserable years, Taras Shevchenko was released from exile. But it was not until 1859 that Taras was permitted to return to Ukraine. During this time, he was arrested on trumped-up charges of blasphemy. He was released yet again, but ordered to return to St. Petersburg. Taras Shevchenko is celebrated today, even 160 years following his death. Taras has enduring significance and relevance into modern times. His impact is in part due to his universal messages, defending the downtrodden, fighting for freedom and identity. It's apparent that the human condition throughout the world, including Ukraine, continues to demonstrate inequities, the suppression of liberties and God-given freedom. In his time, he was a man who spoke the truth to empower Ukrainians to fight for freedom, independence, and their rights. His words and inspiration continue to have relevance in the present as the human condition continues. During the Euromaidan uprising of 2013 and 14, Taras Shevchenko was proclaimed the movement's honorary hetman, or leader. The demonstrations erupted in late 2013 after President Yanukovych reneged on a commitment to sign a cooperation agreement with the European Union. Instead, he made a deal with Russia, opposed by millions of ordinary Ukrainians. The months-long protest turned deadly when Russian sympathizers fired on peaceful demonstrators. Though an agreement was reached to hold new presidential elections at the end of 2014, President Yanukovych fled to Russia. Russia took advantage of the power vacuum by occupying Crimea and invading eastern Ukraine. In the ensuing war, Ukrainians have held the Russian army at bay for nearly 7 years.
Борітеся, поборете. Вам Бог помагає. За вас правда, за вас слава і воля святая.